And while you'll find, if you read the creation literature, that there's some debate as to exactly how you should define what a kind is, in most cases it's quite obvious. On the left you have the skull of a chimp. On the right you have the skull of a human. And these clearly belong to different created kinds. This is a chimpanzee skull, replica. Again, we don't have actual bone. And it's quite obvious that they're quite different. There cannot be any missing links between them if the creationist view of human origins is true. And if creation science is correct, and this is what puzzles me a little bit, there cannot be missing links between ape kind and mankind. Everything that we find must be either an ape or a human. And this has been the position of many of the authorities I've read, of people like Marvin Lubenow, whose book is available for purchase on Dr. Hovind's website, or Jack Cuozzo, author of a very fine book that's also available. As it happens, I have replicas available of both of these. The originals are carefully kept, but replicas are generally available for study. And for the record, this one at least I purchased with my own funds, so your tax dollars did not go into using this as an indoctrination tool. You're welcome. So if we compare these, as we know, they must be either clearly ape or clearly human. The more difficult it is to determine the boundaries between created kinds, the more evolution is going to look like as if it's true. So it should be obvious as to what is an ape and what is a man. If you purchase this book by Jack Cuozzo called Buried Alive, he is I believe he's an orthodontist. He has a great deal of experience with skulls and with bones. And according to him, they're both essentially apes. Marvin Lubenow, on the other hand, author of a book Bones of Contention, which is a very fine book, very fine review of the fossil record, human fossil record from a creationist viewpoint, has placed both of these in as man. So I'm getting confused by this because I've read 4 well-accredited creationist authors, 4 opinions that they have, and I get all 4 possible combinations of which one is an ape and which one is a man. Walter Brown, on the other hand, whose book In the Beginning is available for sale over there, on page 12, states that this animal clearly had ape-like proportions and should never have been classified as man-like. So on Dr. Hovind's website, he sells Martin Lubenow's book, who states that both skulls are human, and Jack Cuozzo's book, who says both are apes. Now, I certainly believe in not exposing people to fraudulent information, but the problem is either that one's incorrect, or that one's incorrect, or both of them are incorrect. At least one of these must contain false information and therefore should not be placed into school libraries or used as discussion material.
Marvin Lubenow's book and Cuozzo's book, they may disagree on whether something is human or ape, but there's a much, much bigger point you are totally missing. I'll share it with you here. Absolutely no fossil could possibly prove evidence. It could not be used as evidence for evolution. That's my point number 1. No fossil could possibly count as evidence for evolution. It couldn't count because you can't demonstrate it had any kids. Secondly, I'd like to point out the similarities between these creatures, and there are many similarities. I'll be quick to agree. Okay, I taught biology and anatomy for many years. There are thousands of similarities. The similarity demonstrates a common designer. So my answer to your question is very simple. Yes, there are thousands of similarities. I don't know if this was a human or an ape. It doesn't matter. It wouldn't count as evidence for evolution because you couldn't prove it had any kids. Okay? If there are species of extinct apes, and I'm sure there are thousands, things that have gone extinct over the years, thousands of animals have gone extinct. So what? That doesn't prove evolution either. That's the opposite of evolution. And so if you're using tax dollars to line these things up in your classroom and say, boys and girls, can't you see the similarity here? And some kid in your class says, yes, teacher, doesn't this prove a common designer? You should say, well, you're right. It certainly could prove a common designer. We don't know.
The second question that we want to present to our debaters is, what is the origin and the age of the universe, and what is your method of determining it?
So thank you for giving such an excellent answer to my question. What I believe we're supposed to talk about now is age of the Earth, and it is obviously between 6,000 and 10,000 years. That's what's printed in Standard Commentary on the King James. 6,000 plus a little bit was the age arrived at by an Irish Archbishop, Archbishop Usher of Armagh, doing the calculations back in the 1500s.
Here's my position. I believe in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. I believe he did it in 6 literal days, exactly like he told us in Exodus chapter 20, verse 11.
The next question that we want to propose to our debaters is, how does your viewpoint affect behavior in society? And we would like for you to address the question is, does this represent a religion?
All right. Last year, the state legislature of Arkansas considered House Bill 2548. At about this time, I believe that started going through in March, if memory serves. And there's one provision of this bill. It had, a great deal of material in it, and I can't possibly summarize it all. But this is one in particular. During classroom instruction conducted by state agencies, museums, zoos, public schools, and political subdivisions of the state, when any statement in instructional material is identified by the instructor to be a theory, the instructor shall instruct the class to make a marginal notation that the statement is a theory. If something has not been proven, it should not be presented as proven. I am 100% in favor of that. And it's not just the theory of evolution that is being taught as fact all over Arkansas. There are theories being taught as if they were fact in the state of Arkansas, the extent of which will shock you. I'll demonstrate. Leaving the question of evolution aside, they are teaching the unproved notion that all life is made of cells. This is called the cell theory. But it's only a theory. It has not been absolutely proven. And yet the medical students in our University of Arkansas for Medical Sciences are being victimized by being taught only the cell theory and not alternatives to the germ theory of disease concocted by Louis Pasteur and Robert Koch. This is the unproved notion that microscopic bacteria, which you can't actually see with your unaided eye, can make you sick. And it's labeled as such in the textbooks and in the reference books that we deal with. It is only a theory. It is not proven that opening unmarked envelopes sent to you and breathing in white powder that you find is actually bad for you. There's also the heliocentric theory, going back to the 1600s, the theory of Copernicus. It's the unproved notion that the Earth goes around the sun and that it spins while it's doing so. And it's not only unproved, it's unbiblical. Dr. Hovind, you mentioned earlier that the Earth was spinning over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator, if I wrote that down correctly. There is a verse in the Psalms, I believe it's Psalm 91, that says, "The earth also is established, therefore it shall not be moved." Clearly you were calling King David a liar. And your tax dollars are being used to defend this preposterous notion that the earth actually goes around the sun and that it's round. There's more. There's this unproved notion called electromagnetic theory. You will find references in these textbooks to plasticity theory. This is only a theory. It is not proved that metals bend in a particular way when you put weight on them. And finally, the atomic theory, the utterly unproved notion, which a number of prominent physicists like the German Ernst Mach have disagreed with, that everything is made up of some sort of invisible atoms that you can't actually see. Just an example, a so-called educational website on disease clearly mentions the germ theory of disease. Not proven, not fact, merely a theory. Yet our medical schools indoctrinate thousands of doctors each year with the unproven notion that little living things crawling around in the air can make you ill. A common biology textbook, Life, the Science of Biology, calls this the fourth organizing concept in all of biology, but it's only a theory. It's the cell theory, the notion that organisms are composed of cells and that the cell is therefore the basic building block of life. We need to present a wider range of alternatives. Are being presented as if they were fact, but it's clear from the textbooks that I have seen in the library that they're being what they really are is unproven speculation. They are religions. We are indoctrinating our doctors with the religion that bacteria creep around in the air. So, Dr. Hovind, I think I fundamentally agree with you about the impact that evolution has had on society, but it has its tentacles in areas much farther than just biology. Our society is being eroded at the core from the widespread acceptance of unproven theories in everything from building design, bridge design, aircraft design, to physics and to chemistry. And I say, I agree, we should tear all of these pages out and remove all of these books from our libraries and do nothing whatsoever but teach facts. Thank you very much.
I can't remember the name of the fallacy for what you just committed for the logical thinking, but you're trying to include evolution with these other things to try to make it appear that they're the same. I'll have to go back and look up the name of the fallacy in the logical process. But we observe cells. To say the cell theory, I mean, you can see them under the microscope. I've seen them and worked on them many thousands of times. You can see the effects of the electromagnetic theory. You can see the results. I would like to see what results we have from the evolution theory. What advancements to modern science do we have? What good has this done? And I think I could point out, if we had time, scores of examples where the textbooks do not refer to it as the evolution theory. They refer to it as the fact of evolution. And they'll say statements like, all species of life have a common ancestor. That has not been observed. It's not even said that this is a theory that all species of life have a common ancestor. So you're trying to include evolution with these other sciences as if they're on equal footing when they're certainly not at all. Evolution is the foundation philosophy behind racism. There are many, many folks who would agree with this, including Stephen Gultz. Evolution is also certainly the foundation for communism. Communism is based on evolution theory 100%. You will not understand what happened with Hitler in World War II and 13 million people being executed, not just the ones at the camp, but in the whole war. 13 million people lost their life because of this evolution theory. As far as germ theory, I think there's overwhelming evidence that germs are involved in disease, but it is called the germ theory because, surprisingly, there's still quite a bit of argument about it. Okay, a germ can be infested in a room, and some people will get it, some people won't. For instance, if you are taking oregano oil or garlic tablets, anthrax doesn't seem to affect you. So does the anthrax cause the disease, or does the lack of resistance cause the disease? Does oxygen cause rust, or does exposed metal cause rust? I mean, all you have to do is paint the metal and it won't rust. So I would agree there's a germ theory and a cell theory and all this stuff, but for you to try to associate evolution with it is a logical fallacy.
I actually looked this up, looked at chromosome numbers for horses and donkeys, and if memory serves, horses have 64 and donkeys 62. I could have that backwards, but they only differ by 2 chromosomes, and yet they are part of one kind because, for the reasons that you've just outlined so clearly. The problem is that humans have 46 and apes have 48, and the difference is, again, only of 2 chromosomes. So in one case you have a difference, but it's not enough to put horses and donkeys in different kinds. In another case you have a genetic difference, but it is enough to put humans and apes in 2 different kinds. And I'm not quite sure, I'm looking for some sort of logical consistency I can take back to tell my students.
Similarities, I think, are evidence of a common designer. Now, if you want to believe that humans and apes have a common ancestor, you're certainly welcome to believe that.
Thank you.
But that is not something that you should be using taxpayers' dollars to. Certainly you should not teach it dogmatically.
I actually agree with you about the use of taxpayers' money to fund the teaching of fraudulent theories. And you had an excellent solution for this on your website last year, and it doesn't seem to be there now. But at one time you had a very long explanation about why you did not, in fact, pay federal income tax. And it had to do with federal income tax is not charged to you as a citizen. It's charged to a fictional legal corporation that was created by the government.
Yeah,
this is shown because your W-2 forms and things like that have your name in capital letters, which legally does not refer to you, which would be your name in capitals and lowercase.
What you're doing now is another logical fallacy called red herring. You're trying to draw attention away from the argument by focusing on, or ad hominem argument, attacking me personally. I have nothing to fear whatsoever for IRS or anything else. I mean, obviously they're big boys. Why would you worry about it? You know, they can take care of me just fine. But I believe everybody should obey the law, including the government, and I do. And if you're going to try to accuse me of breaking some law, you need to be better be prepared to defend that.
Oh, I was not accusing you of anything.
Good.
In fact, I kind of approve of the idea.